Now, preventing Egypt from becoming a religious democracy, a religious dictatorship, is likely to require that liberal and other independent voices do what they can. First, to prevent a rift between the people and the army. And this is now done. There are undercurrents to do this from what we call the counter-revolution. So, to prevent a rift between the people and the army in order to preserve military power long enough to build up organizations and to allow the new emerging forces to conduct a more effective outreach campaign, because Egypt is not Cairo, Alexandria, and Suez. You have to go out to the villages, to the provinces, and so on. And that's what I said. The young people with whom I am, you have known them. In Tahrir Square, you didn't only have youth, you had all of Egypt. There were millions, so go after them. See where they are, you know them. See where they are, try to convince them, and so on. I want to make clear one thing. The idea is not to oppose the Muslim Brotherhood as such. On the contrary, the great mistake of the former government was to isolate them from the political arena through harassment, arrests, imprisonment, and so on. Today the challenge is to incorporate them into the former political arena, and with time, as I said, they will become just another political actor, assuming that time allows for the development of a range of credible alternatives. I believe that it is the diverse collection of civilian opposition movements, if they get their act together, and there are many who are emerging today with very respectable figures. Maybe you know some of the names: Dr. Abul Ghar, Dr. Mahmoud Ghonim, Amr Hamzawi, whom you must be very familiar with, Naguib Sawiris, Hisham Khizandar, many nice, good, attractive figures that could lead new emerging parties, because I would say that the old parties, whether it is the WEF, the Nasserists, the left, have become totally obsolete. This is my interpretation. I believe that it is the diverse collection of civilian opposition movements, if they get their act together and forget about their egos in particular and decide to join forces. It's very good to have all these new clusters, but I think that for the election they need to form a liberal platform. I believe that if they do this, they may well determine the outcome of, first of all, the current turbulence in Egypt, and I believe they may do much better than we expect. If the Brotherhood is to be defeated, Egyptians must believe that there is a Muslim alternative to it. You cannot have a party that has just a secular platform. You must incorporate the moderate Muslims in it, and I believe that the majority of Egyptians are Muslim moderates. I'm here thinking not only of the secular Muslims, whom you probably all know, but of the moderate Muslims, like Hizb al-Wasat, like the Shabab al-Ikhwan, like others who are recognized as Muslim figures, but who certainly don't want the rule of clerics, who certainly don't want, and many of the women and the Christians who don't want to be treated as second-class citizens, and many of the Muslims who don't want to be told how to pray or when to pray. So there must be a genuine debate, I believe now, among the Egyptian people before there are elections for a new government that would have the power to end freedom. Because among the amendments, no amendment was made to the enormous prerogatives that the former president had. He was head of everything, from the army to the sweeper in the street. So if there is no change in that, if you don't limit the powers of the executive, then we will have another pharaoh, just after we said this was the last pharaoh. So there must be a genuine debate among Egyptian people before there are elections for a new government that would have the power to end freedom. I believe that much in the early stages of the Egyptian revolution provides inspiring hope that a new generation of Egyptians care about freedom, no matter what the obstacles are today, and maybe they will be able to avoid the pitfalls along the lengthy path to stable democracy. I want to repeat here, in such a case, the West will also benefit. The West must know that a democratic Egypt will be much more of a guarantee when there is the rule of law of Western and American interests in particular. The stability that they have propped up with so much money for so long, the stability was a false stability. They propped up an autocratic regime thinking that this is what will save their interests. As we saw overnight, it was over. Now, what is happening now? We have new parties of many colors that are taking shape, including, of course, the Islamist parties. We want to get the economy back on track. What are the challenges? Get the economy back on track is one of the biggest challenges that face Egypt now. The youth population wants both more political openness and new economic opportunities, job, employment, instead of the wealth divisions that we had and the enormous gap between the haves and the have-nots. Some were living in slum areas and others were living in golden ghettos. Old liberal and leftist parties are weak and seem obsolete because, on the one hand, they were repressed by the former regime, partly so that he could portray the Brotherhood as the only alternative, no other alternative, no liberal, no secular, nothing. Only the Brotherhood as the only alternative to his own autocracy, a ploy that unfortunately secured him the support of Western powers and in particular American power who were fearful of Islamists in power. Now, the real question that faces the new parties and the new emerging forces is a question that will remain as it was in the past. How can we blend Islamic elements with a modern, democratic, secular regime? This question is as vital today as it was yesterday, as it was at the time of Makram-Ebeid. Should we look for inspiration to the Turkish model, or should we look to the Indonesian model? We have many models now, but the real model will be homegrown. I forgot to say that apart from the three forces that I want to control Egypt, there is a fourth force, and this is the negative one. One is the NDP remnants who are responsible for the famous camel and mules attack, who are responsible for burning state security files, and lately in the stadium against our brothers in Tunis, who have been so generous in receiving Egyptians fleeing from Libya, who are responsible in fueling sectarian violence when we thought this whole thing was over by burning churches, and so on.